Hey everybody, this is Dan from Dan Stocks. I hope everyone's going well. Well, maybe I got cut off. Let me say it again. Hey everybody, this is Dan from Dan Stocks. Dan Stocks. Hopes everyone's doing well. That you all had a great Thanksgiving, which is it's a very big holiday weekend in the United States. So it's part of the reason why I'm doing this a little bit early and why I look so casual. Is we just finished putting up Christmas decorations. And the Buffalo Bills are playing at 4:30, so I wanted to get on here before then. All right. So just some of the updates that we've done on the channel recently is we had the John Gotti series, which that one originally was supposed to be just a one and done video that was going to be maybe 25 to 30 minutes long. But once I got into it, I was kind of gonna go through with the themes of, from the Gotti '96 movie about him, not following the rules, and that was his downfall. But as I started doing the research on Gotti, I realized that number one is that his story's been done a lot, so I think there was a lot of interest in doing his early days, covering that, and since we were covering the early days, it just turned into why don't we cover everything? And then the second part was is that he John Gotti was definitely no matter what he did, he was going to be going to prison. The government was not going to let it go that he was the boss of the Gambino family. They were really into getting the mafia out, and he just it was just going to happen no matter what. So and that also, like, after I finished up on the series, when I was editing the fourth one after it was written, I rewatched the Gotti movie, which is on it's on YouTube, the 1996 one with Armando Assante, or anyway, that's it's actually a really good movie, probably one of the best mob movies ever created in terms of accuracy. I mean, they definitely did some things in there that was not fully true. One thing was they combined Joe Armone and Joe N. Gallo, into a single character who was also not in prison when Gotti went down, which in reality both those guys were in prison. And the other, they said they did other stuff too. They kind of made Gotti seem like more heroic than he was in real life, and they made Sammy the Bull also come off as more of a villain. Um, Yeah, but there was that movie. Then there's also the Travolta movie with that came out a few years ago, also about Gotti, and that movie was, I think that movie, first of all, a lot of people say it wasn't that good. It wasn't that bad either, but I think they kind of, the theme they were going for it, and but they should have just went all the way and was telling the story of John Gotti Jr. rather than trying to tell both their stories, because the way that movie was coming out is that John Gotti Jr., was basically a product of his father's life in crime. If his father, wasn't the boss of the Gambino family, didn't pressure him in there, then, he would have done something else. He wasn't really suited for that life, but it is what it is. All right. I don't really know much about John Gotti Jr. aside from a few things I've read, so I never really watched his YouTube videos or anything, so I can't really make a judgment there. Another recent video we did was a couple weeks ago about the Westies gang, and the Irish mob. Um, I'm trying to branch out and do more videos on different organized crime groups. Not just exclusive to the mafia. We did a few months ago. There was a video on what's called The Company, which is the Hawaiian mafia, and that one was pretty successful. I think it is organized crime is, in crime in general, or organized crime is a pretty good subgenre of the crime genre. And I think it appeals to me and a lot of people because, these are people who are not, I mean, it's kind of hard to peg them down as fully evil, meaning that they're, they're operating between being the total psychopath and being completely rational, and I think that's, so there's something appealing to them to a lot of people, but there's also something kind of different too, because a lot of us would not do the stuff that these people do. Um, so just to give some other updates on some of the stuff that I got going on is, the next video is going to be about the Colombo War, the Third Colombo War. We did a video back in August that covered the first and the second ones, since they were very interrelated in terms of Joe Gallo. So now this one is going to be the third Colombo War, probably about 25 to 30 minutes long. And then the other ones that I want to do for the rest of the year is I want to do one about that, the Venezuela cartel. They have some kind of name, like something about the sun. I was just reading about it recently, and I thought this is pretty interesting. So I want to get that one done. Excuse me, probably for the following week. And then the other thing I want to cover is, this is something that kind of came up in the Vincent Papa video that I did, and then also there was the Westies one that I was doing as well. Is that there was a lot of these Irish gangsters back in the 1970s who were doing kidnapping rackets, where they were basically, one of the things they were doing is they were abducting Cosa Nostra guys off the streets, holding them for ransom, and then releasing them. So I want to do something about that, and also kind of focus on the the details of the Manny Gambino abduction, because that one was mentioned briefly in both the Vinny Papa video and also the John Gotti video. And some people think that Manny Gambino, set it up himself as a scam and that he accidentally got killed, and other people don't believe that. So we'll do that as well. Just a couple other things too is, we got some more videos, that we're working on for 2026 in terms of the ideas. I like, to make a schedule, and of course the schedule changes a lot too. There's a lot of ones that were for 2025 that, got pushed back because other videos like the Gotti one ended up being, instead of one, it was a 4-part series. And then, sometime later next year too, I'm going to release that one as a full long-term video because it's about 2 hours long. But I'm looking to do other videos too, and I want to branch outside of Cosa Nostra. We did a poll on the channel. It seems like there's a lot of interest in other stuff too. Like, we could do the Russian mob, we could do Chinese mob. There's a lot of different stuff. So I think, I just don't want to be pegged into the Cosa Nostra. So if there's any other groups or even other mob stories that are interesting too, that happen in other parts of the country, please comment or write a post on it too. I know somebody, one of the ones that's on the list is somebody suggested, I got to look up the name of it, but it was a mafia family in Texas around Galveston, which they featured in 1923, the TV show, when the guy Spencer returns to the United States and enters through Texas. It turns out that mafia family was real. I thought it was all made up. Somebody asked about doing a video on that. Another one too that's mafia is the Kansas City mob. I want to do a video on because I find them to be very interesting, especially in terms of they were back in the 1930s. They were into dealing drugs, and it was actually whatever they called, like the Drug Enforcement Narcotics Bureau back then. When they were investigating the Kansas City mob, they were the ones to first realize that, hey, there actually is a national crime syndicate. So that's, another interesting video we have coming up. Also going to branch into some other videos about the, the Mexican cartels, maybe some MS-13 stuff. We got, some Chinese gangs for New York City. We're also, there is also other mafia stuff too that we haven't really branched into, with the, we've covered the Bonanno family, we've covered the Gambino family, and the Colombo family, but, there's other, there's 2 other families in New York that we haven't really covered yet either, so we got that going on. One thing I really want to do is a video on the early days of the Pravacci family, mainly how the guy got started. So if anybody has any books or something they could recommend, I'd really appreciate that. I haven't really been able to find too much of my own. Um, but yeah, that's what's going on. Um, yeah, that's basically it. If anyone has anything they want to ask or any comments to leave, please feel free to leave a comment, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much. And yeah, the next live stream will be on December 28th. I'm trying to do these every Sunday, sometime in the Sunday afternoons. I'm on the East Coast of the United States. So yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for tuning in. And enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and go Bills.